Hello everyone and welcome to today's session.
Today we are presenting the topic of UX in network and observability. And before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat on YouTube. We'll collect them during the presentation and we will have time after to answer the questions at the end.
After this presentation, we believe that you will have a good understanding of the value that UX process may bring to your organization. We will share our experiences and provide some examples regarding business implementation of the UX process. We'll talk about how to use UX process in times of fierce competition in today's market, how to install such a process in your agenda, what perspectives might be valuable and important in your organizations. We'll also briefly discuss how to know whether you need such a process in your organization or product, and we also will answer any questions.
But yeah, before we start, let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Krzysztof Sajna. I'm managing projects that revolve around creating new products and creating new user experience in existing products. On my right, you have...
Yeah, my name is Antoni. Based on my experience in different roles like UX researcher or business analyst, I connect customer needs with business goals.
On an everyday basis, we help our clients with the product design competencies. Before we move forward, it would be a good idea to establish terminology so we are on the same page when using terms UX and UI.
And the next page, this is very important to be on the same page, especially that the UX industry is quite full of buzzwords. So what is user experience then? According to fathers of user experience, if I may call it like that, Don Norman and Jacob Nielsen, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services and its products. And if I may add here that I look at user experience also as a facilitator of an internal discussion. So UX facilitates discussions inside product teams or companies to just bring all internal competencies together to design products that provides good overall user experience so that a user becomes or stays your customer. And of course, there may be a question, so what is UI then? That's obviously user interface, and this is one of the elements that may help create good experiences, right? Together with other elements like information architecture, accessibility, or usability. And of course, like vast majority of an experience is created by user interface because we mostly talk about digital products such as apps, such as systems. So yeah, like usually here, the experience is created using user interface. And what is super important to underline here is that your customers often understand your product from user interface only. And they know nothing more than they can see actually. And the question is, are you sure what they see is helping them on an everyday basis? Because if it helps them, then they can choose and recommend your product in the end.
One question to that. What are the rules for good UX design? What are the principles of designing good product?
Well, first of all, the design principles are not taken, out of nowhere. There are standards, there are different rules, there are different heuristics, and there is even a law. So just to let you know that it's not, it's not out of space, right? But all the standards and all the heuristics, this could be like I think different webinar. It could take a lot of time, but here what we would like to underline is that there are principles that we have to follow and we follow as designers and yeah.
By the way, if you've got any questions to what we are talking about, please type them in our YouTube chat. We do everything to answer them in our Q&A session. If we don't find time for that, we'll follow up in email.
That is correct. Having user experience specialists, if we come back to the topic, makes your products customer-centric by definition. And we all want our products to be customer-centric these days. And bringing users' voice to the product development process is one of the most important responsibilities of UX specialists. And depending on the context, such voice, user voice, can influence different decisions and on different levels, from development team, for instance, up to C-level decision makers. So just to underline again here, like direct qualitative user research can be an endless insight source for your business. And to be honest, when we look around us, most successful products in the market are usually those with customer feedback loop implemented. But again, this also could be a separate webinar, so let's move forward.
Okay, shortly, what makes products stand out? What makes great user experience?
Well, that's a hard question, but I would say that the answer is maybe simple, like focus on the user and constant measuring of your user's experience. This is first thing that must be in place. And of course, then intuitive user interface is something super important. Also, the ease of setup and configuration of the product is something that helps, to create a positive user experience. Also, the performance of your application, especially in our industry, the performance of our digital products are super important. Nobody likes to wait, and if you have to wait, then you need to know how long you will wait for instance, for loading a data or something like that. Also, help and support is super important, because when the user is lost, when your customer is lost with your product, then he or she needs to have a place, to find help, right? And also, a feedback loop is something that is super important, because anytime your customer wants to tell you something about your product, it's good that it can be done, very, very easily. And to be specific for observability, well, first of all, you need to, know what kind of data you show to your users, because, and you have to answer the question if it's needed by the user or not. Then you need to also define and know how you show the data, because if the user can get information to the brain without any delay, the better for him, right? And also, a super important thing is how fast you show the data. And again, as I mentioned already, especially in our industry, when we have to load different amounts of data, for instance, to the interface, it's always good to let your user know, okay, how long he or she will wait, right? And I'm telling this because often it's not in place, it's not in the application. And also a clarity. I often hear the sentence in development teams that, okay, let's put everything. Actually, then our user can customize it. And of course, I mean, it's happening, and it's good when a user can customize, but you need to ask yourself one very important question. Do you want your customer to learn your product and customize it, or do you want him to start using it immediately because of a low learnability and tweak, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, if I may add,
Sure.
Too much information might be hurtful for the product. Engineering staff generally doesn't like fluff information to be displayed on dashboards, on charts, and so on. So each information we present on the product page, whether it's a chart or anything else, must have a good justification. We need to know what user goal or business goal it helps to accomplish. For example, additional information on chart like colorful backgrounds might not be important.
Yeah. And what is very important is that in our industry, good user experience helps to lower response time. This is super important because good user interface cuts down the time spent on analyzing data by engineers. And on one hand, of course, improves their experience with your product. That's super important for you as a product owner. But on the other hand, it helps, on everyday basis, because there is no time wasted on, analyzing the different dashboards or analyzing the different screens. Again, this is super important. With good user interface design and with good user experience design, you can lower the response time.
Okay, I feel convinced. Maybe also attendees of this webinar too. Tell me, how to start?
It's a good question. You can start, for instance, with such hypothesis, as you can see right now. It's taken from a book I can totally recommend from Lean UX. This hypothesis is needed because you need to have a clear information of what you want to achieve as a business, right? To create good experience for your customers, you need to have a deep understanding of what they are struggling with in everyday life. And then you can provide a solution tailored to solve their problems. And if you help them solve their problems, then they will choose your product simply. And this is like user experience in a nutshell. And I could also talk more about setting KPIs here at the very beginning of a project, using also this hypothesis. Still, it's another long topic, so let's move forward.
Okay. All that sounds great, but this involves additional people, additional costs, additional process, perhaps additional time. In your experience, what's the justification and what's the balance between costs and benefits?
That's very. I hear this question very often, and it is very simple because by investing in user experience, in UX competencies within your team, you will save simply a lot of time. This is super important here, and as we know, time is money. So nothing to add more here. First of all, with user-friendly product, you save your customers' time, right? That's first profit, a profit for your customer, which I believe customers like. But then what's even more important, you can save your effort as somebody who is creating products or digital products. For instance, you can cut time on user training, you can cut time on support, you can cut time on converting people to use your product, because if it's usable, user-friendly, then more likely will be, people would like to use it more. And you are reducing waste, and so you are reducing anything that is not important or super needed at this point where you are. But my favorite and not very obvious thing that UX can help in is cut time that you spend on long-lasting discussions within the projects, within the companies, within teams. This is super important thing because you can save really a lot of time on that thanks to UX.
Yeah, we avoid usually long-lasting discussion about how things should or might be done. We can agree on the shape of product, the usability on the early stages of the project. In the late stages of the projects, we also have the ability to experiment on Figma prototypes when moving something around is fairly easy and inexpensive, while in the product it might be a bigger change.
Yeah, and you can just imagine all the meetings that could have been a wireframe, and imagine all the time that you can save here thanks to user experience specialists. Still, it's not easy to install UX competencies in your stack, so it brings value, not frustration, for instance, or it brings value, not additional costs, or it's also not super easy to scale UX team. These are not obvious things, but I think you had a good example here.
Yeah, I've got an example of something that went wrong. That's easy, right? UX process might be easily in imbalance. So imagine an organization, a big organization where UX team is focused on helping product managers to create new ideas for features, more and more new ideas. When UX team is focused only on creating ideas, it cannot properly support developers. Well-balanced UX team can both create new ideas and support developers in daily duties. And that means bringing the idea from the head of product manager and explaining it with images to the development team. In this example, we were able to slowly and gradually evolve the organization and support developers with good UX process. Within a couple of cycles, of development cycles, this started working as intended and cut down on time spent on development.
And if it's installing the UX into your tech stack, we don't have a process that let us provide like fit for all way of cooperation, right? We have an experience that let us always understand project context and precisely those needed competencies. This is super important, not to provide everything at once, just those, as mentioned, super
Fill out
precisely.
the gaps.
Exactly. And depending, on the project and depending on different things, you can add such competencies into your tech stack, like, for instance, as a support for product owner only, right? Or on the other hand, you can add those also straight to development team. And to be honest, from our experience, this is the most the best way of actually engaging UX specialists into the process.
Yeah, our last project.
Yeah,
We were able to install the UX process end to end from day one. This was a customer with well-established networking product that started losing its edge against competitors due to a bit, let's say, aged UX experience. The product, a bit. The product was growing gradually by often acquiring other companies that caused that the user experience across the product was not consistent. Not only user experience, but also design of plugins and extensions. We were engaged from day one into talks with product team, with friendly customers. We were able to talk with end users. What we gathered was the vision of product team, and we also gathered how users are using the product every day. Mostly those things were in line. There were some areas that, let's say, the ideas were a bit different, right? What it gave us was also an opportunity to develop the product, to propose developments into areas that were not obvious before and made the product better. Working on the product also enabled us to build each and every functionality, create Figma prototypes, create all the components that were later used by development team, communicating with all the users, all the stakeholders, thanks to clickable prototype, was very easy. We could test the product end to end before we started engaging development team. Further on, we are planning also on doing some research on how the users are using the new product, what it changed in their behavior compared to the initial product.
Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, let's move to the different perspectives, and I think we can start from CTO, right?
Yeah, my favorite.
Your favorite.
Yeah. First of all, clear guidance for the product. We've got idea. That's great. Now let's crush this idea with reality. UX designers help in aligning the product design with business goals. We take the idea, put it on paper, make the prototype, so the decision makers can really see what will be communicated to other managers, to the teams. We can also verify business assumptions. The idea may not be clear enough to withstand contact with reality. So a prototype, a clickable prototype, can verify every single step of the product with end users. We can test this against the market. We can prepare landing pages with prototypes. No problem. We can pinpoint business value. When creating a prototype, some things may not be obvious in the beginning. After some testing, we can find new chances, new developments that can bring value to the product. Another perspective.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear another perspective. That's why I skipped a bit. But yeah, let's move to the engineering manager. I think it's your favorite.
Yeah,
second favorite.
Second favorite. That's me, right?
That's me.
So, as an engineering manager working with Figma prototypes, first of all, I know what to deliver. I've got clear picture. I've got user paths. No problem. There's no ambiguity, our favorite word. I know how to deliver, so I know the quality. I've got all the colors, I've got pixel perfect prototypes, I know how it is supposed to work, and thanks to that, I have also definition of done ready. Maybe there is some additional description needed. For example, the response time must be below 10 milliseconds. But everything is drawn. I've got all the dimensions, I've got all the user paths, I've got every single component presented in Figma. So now
Project manager.
Project manager, yeah. That's the, let's say, itty-gritty piece of work. Clear scope, easy reference for changes, and ability to test to test the product before work starts. When everything is drawn in Figma, estimation, time estimation, cost estimation, clashing tech stack against prototype is very easy. Teams just see what they are supposed to deliver. In later stages of the product, making any changes is very easy because I don't need to engage a development team into early discussion about change. I can move around things in Figma. I can test those usability improvements. I can test those changes and then pass the changes to development team without messing any work. What is more, I can test the product before work even starts. I've got clickable prototype. I can pass it to end-to-end testing department. I can check usability. I can check usability with end users. All this before engaging any developers.
And talking about developers, last but not least, I worked with different in different setups, right? Bigger projects, smaller projects, lots of developers, few developers, or even sometimes one. And those three things I usually hear there when UX joins the project is that all doubts and questions are discussed and agreed. This is the perspective I've heard from people I worked with. Second thing is that everybody in the team is on the same page. This is super important because actually, when you have 10 people in the team discussing one thing, they imagine completely different things very often. And when UX is in place, they all look at the same page or at the same screen and the same prototype, and they know that they are talking about the same thing and they can easily discuss. And what we mentioned at the very beginning, cut time on those discussions. And what I've heard also quite often is that my work is faster thanks to lack of ambiguity. This is our favorite word because we use it here quite often in this presentation, but we don't hear it very often in the projects when UX is in place. Developers can focus on development and not on thinking about how something should work within the app or system or anything else, right?
How many pixels from the edge I need to place this button?
For instance. So, okay, before we summarize and move to the Q&As, we have a list of questions, sort of checklist that could help you in assessing if it will be valuable for your business to invest in UX competencies. Let's start from the first one. Well, can you describe the current user experience and any pain points or challenges that users face with your product or services? You don't have to, send us the answers, of course, but yeah, think about it for a moment. Second thing is that have you conducted any user research or usability testing in the past? Yes or no? Do you have unlimited budget? It's not a tricky question here, but I need to ask it, and you probably understand why. And also, are you sure about your backlog priorities? Yes or no? Simple. And last thing is, who is responsible for designing interface of your product? It's not a simple answer, yes or no, but yeah, can you point one
guy?
Yeah, one person. And if most of the answers are no, that we would strongly suggest to involve user experience specialists, such competencies within your product. And if you are, for instance, not able to pinpoint one person who is responsible for designing interface, this is probably also a good moment to think about UX design. Yeah, because this will, let you sort of keep your app or your ecosystem consistent in the end.
Yeah.
And just 3 takeaways summarizing the whole webinar here is, without user in the product, there is no user experience without the user, right? So when there is no user voice in the product development process, then you can't have a good user experience. That's one thing. Second thing is that UX is not expensive and it's not time consuming. And if you experienced something like that in your projects before, probably it was not properly added to your team. Third thing is that still you need to be careful when using UX competencies, because as we said at the very beginning, there are lots of buzzwords flying around, and there are not many UX specialists with domain knowledge from our field, from observability. So these are those 3 things. And what now?
Yeah, I think it's time for Q&A session, right?
I think yeah.
We've got one question.
We have one question here, and I think we have even more, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer all of them. Still, Kevin asked, how long does it take your UX team to go from generative research to prototyping and to launching the product or feature?
It depends.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's imagine. Let's have some boundaries. So let's start from, we finished the research, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hard part behind us. Now let's say this is a new dashboard with a couple of charts. We know what to present because we did the research. We've got the data, the sample data available.
Still, I would say that it like to prototype a feature or prototype something that we know how to prototype, and I would say I would count rather days than months or sprints, right? Of course, first answer of Krzysztof, it depends, is the best here. But again, we try to work as fast as possible in terms not to analyze too much or think too much.
Let's imagine our last project, right? A simple dashboard there.
Yeah.
We had perfect cooperation with the client. The answers we had the next day.
Yeah.
So it was 1 week for initial round, then 2nd week to polish everything up, and after 3 weeks we could hand it off to developers.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Still, we try to start fast and sketch first ideas immediately. So sometimes these are hours. If we have enough data, enough knowledge about what we need to create, then it really takes it could be even hours that are not mentioned here. I think additional question, how do I know my UX needs improvement?
If you are asking this question, your UX needs improvement.
Yes,
okay.
That's the short answer. If you never thought about what are your users experiencing, so what is the user experience, then probably you could try to start measuring it somehow, or you could at least take a look on how people are using your product. So
for example, number of questions, how do I use this feature on your support mailbox might be a good indicator, right?
But this is again topic also for probably additional webinar at some point. So
I know. If there is a YouTube channel that is living off explaining your product to new users, you probably need some improvements.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have no?
I think. Another question. How have you successfully advocated the value of UX to stakeholders who do not believe UX is valuable to begin with prototype?
Yeah, I would say with prototype, and also something that always works is just not creating some super complicated and long-lasting and expensive user research, but sometimes showing how a user is lost in your application. It changes everything, right?
There was one other example, drawing the user experience. You remember we draw recently we draw a user experience of existing app and we had loops and loops and loops before reaching the conclusion, and most of the information wasn't even used.
And it also convinced quite quickly, right? How to test UX?
How to test? With users, definitely. Meet with them, talk with them. We use even the method where we film the user and actions he takes. So we can, for example, we pinpoint what causes frustration. We pinpoint, for example, users is thinking about performing a certain action, and we see his mouse starts wiggling, right? What do I do next? Okay, that's not obvious. That needs improvement. So maybe performing certain set of actions needs some guidance. For example, highlighted icon, something like that.
And of course, the answer here, I could use, our Joker card. So it depends. But Edward asked how to test UX. So generally, users have tasks they need to do in your application. So just try to find one person who is using your product and just simply observe as a first step how he or she is doing it, and ask them, okay, what was frustrating for you? This is the easiest way. I mean, you don't have to have, super, again, huge costs or time. The simplest way to start is just to, do the guerrilla testing sort of, and just take your app and go to people and ask them, okay, do this in this application, and check if it's doable or not. If not, then try to improve it. If it's doable, then perfect. You can focus on different things, on additional features. So this is how to start.
Do you know that IKEA is using a great tool for user experience testing regarding their products?
I know I'm there, but I'm not sure if we can say how often I'm in this shop.
Okay, they are using angry customer reviews to their advantage. So they are scouring the reviews and the feedback they get from users for angry reviews, for unhappy clients who give valuable feedback, and they work with them. The more negative the feedback and the more information it provides. For example, I had problems with this screw because they find such clients, they work with him, they invite him for a meeting, they invite them for early testing. In software world, it's even easier to do.
Yeah.
I can imagine that one of my clients or customers gives me some negative feedback with clear instruction. It would be easier to, okay, I'll work with that guy because he clearly wants to improve my product and has idea how it works.
Yeah. So basically, again, answering the question how to test UX, find a really pissed customer and listen to him or her, right? As you said, those angry people frustrated with using application or stuff. I really like them, and every time I do a research session, I start with, okay, now start complaining, and you just need to listen to people complaining. This is the easy part.
And ask them, how would you do that differently?
Yeah.
There's another thing, A/B testing. When you've got old application, new application, you can measure times of completing certain tasks between those two applications. That's also a good measurement.
Absolutely. As you can see, Krzysztof can talk about it very, very, very long.
Yes,
and our producer is showing us that we need to wrap up. So I think we can move forward here. I think we've covered all the topics, all the questions. And as we are using the same methods that we are talking about, in short, we will send you a survey after this webinar. Please let us know what could be improved, what you liked, what you didn't like. Please let us know what kind of topics you are interested in for the future, so we will be able to deliver you better webinars, more interesting webinars. And we hope you liked this one.
It was a pleasure being here with you. See you soon. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.